to our first webinar of the year. My name is Dr. Lydia Comer from the University of Missouri, and I will be your facilitator for today's webinar. I am delighted to welcome you to today's learning event. First, I wish to thank you for taking time off your busy schedules to join us as we kick off our series of webinars. These webinars will be held every last Wednesday of the month. I would like to go ahead and cover a few housekeeping items before we begin. So for all of us here, let us take a minute and look at the question tab on your right-hand side of your screen. During the webinar, we would like for you to type in your questions in the questions or chat box tab in there, and we will review those questions occasionally as we go through the webinar. The session may take about 45 minutes. This time will depend on how much interaction we will have throughout the webinar with the questions. We will pause periodically for these questions, and there will be polls to allow us some dialogue. We also wish to recognize Skibo and Associates for hosting a group webinar viewing and joining us today. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube for later viewing. We also wish to acknowledge the various brands that we have used in this webinar and their work. As you will see, they provide excellent examples for us to learn from. We must acknowledge that we are not in any way their representatives. Our speaker for today is Dr. Penina Lam. She holds a PhD in Leadership and Organizational Development, OD. Dr. Lam is a scholar and practitioner in the field of human resource development and is an early adopter of e-learning. She adopted this since 2001. Dr. Lam has co-authored the Management of Adult Education Organizations in Africa, which was a UNESCO project that was published in 2010. She specializes in e-learning, organizational development, and leadership development. As an OD consultant and coach, Dr. Penina Lam continues to work with clients internationally on projects to strategize, design, implement, and evaluate learning initiatives and improve individual and organizational performance. Dr. Lam previously has worked as a university professor and has had the opportunity to develop and teach over a dozen blended and online programs and workshops. As an educator, she's very passionate about identifying innovative ways to improve learning and performance, and is committed to using technologies to enhance educational accessibility. While eLearning Innovators is a Canadian-based company, we serve internationally. Our areas of focus include e-learning content and webinar hosting services. With that brief introduction, I would like to welcome Dr. Penina Lam to start our webinar for today. Thank you. Dr. Penina Lam.
Thank you, Lydia, for that introduction. I really appreciate you facilitating this session. And I want to thank every one of you participants who's with us today. I'm grateful that you took your time to join me as we launch our webinar series and enable you to grow in 2015. And through this webinar, some of the key objectives that I had for today for every participant is that you will be able to become a little more familiar with webinars and what their value is, and see how successful organizations are using webinars for lead generation and customer engagement. And you will also be able to learn how webinars can be a useful strategy for showcasing your expertise to your prospective clients or existing ones, and then examine how content marketing, for example, webinars, is useful for engaging with clients and potential ways of saving money using such strategies to enhance your brand, and how obviously you can be able to utilize such technologies and approaches to grow this year. I would like to start off by doing a quick poll, and I'll ask you to please participate with me. I would like to know what type of organization you work for. Please use your mouse to click on the appropriate button for this particular poll. So I'm pausing for a minute to allow each one of you some time to respond so that we get a feel for who's joining us today. Okay, looks like everybody has had a chance to weigh in. All right, so I'm going to close this and share the results with you. All right, we'll pause for a minute. As you can see, we have quite a good, diverse audience today from right across all organizations, 38% corporate, 23% colleges and universities, 8% government, 31% non-governmental organizations. What a great group. We welcome diversity in all its ways, so excellent. So what I'm going to do with this is that I'll try in my examples as much as possible to give you a sense of how other corporations or colleges and universities and non-governmental organizations have actually implemented and used webinars to grow and engage their audience. So I hope you'll be welcome to that. All right. I realize that some of you may be somewhat new to webinars, while others are experienced virtual facilitators. So allow me a minute to walk quickly through what webinars are before we dive into the benefits of using them. Webinars essentially is a term that I know did not used to exist when I went to school and when I was learning English. It's a pretty modern, I would say the last decade, term that is a combination of two key things: the web and seminars. And so the combination of that gives us the word webinar. What are webinars? They are web-based interactive presentations or seminars or workshops transmitted over video conferencing software. As I'll demonstrate later on, you will see that webinars are diverse in their nature. They differ in frequency, facilitation, style, accessibility, size, technologies, their purpose, and even the level of interactivity. So you'll see different kinds of webinars depending on the kind of organization that's hosting it. Generally speaking, webinars tend to be interactive, and by interactive, they have the ability for two-way communication where you're able to give, receive, and discuss information. Merriam-Webster actually defines webinars as a live online educational presentation in which participating viewers can submit questions and comments. And so as Lydia noted earlier, you have the opportunity to ask a question by clicking on the appropriate tab, blue tab, and then entering your question that way. And we will pause occasionally to take those questions. All right. In terms of applications, people join webinars via multiple software and hardware. A good example of this is you can join via your desktop computer, using a laptop or using a Mac or a PC, using a tablet or a mobile phone. What's essential is the connectivity is obviously that you have some internet access, and connectivity is key, and as is having the right application to enable such a meeting. Webinars such as this one utilize video conferencing applications and are useful to not only deliver group presentations, but also to offer learning abilities, marketing materials. Virtual meetings are also used for clients, who are dispersed and are not in one particular geographic location. And then for employees who work from home, they can be able to connect with those in an office or who may be scattered elsewhere around the world. They're great for telecommuting that way. And also for connecting business consultants with their clients whom they may or may not live in the same location. They're also great and used as a tool for long-distance volunteers or, let's say, corporate board members who may be at a distance and yet you need to reach them occasionally. So there are multiple uses, as you can see, and multiple devices. And I'm curious to learn about what tool you use to join today. I'm going to launch a quick poll on what continent you're joining us from. So let's take a peek at who's represented today and where you're joining from. So if you take a minute, please, and record your response. Excellent. I think everyone has had a chance to respond. It's still going on. I'll give you a minute. Lovely. Okay, I'm going to close the poll now and share those results with you. This is amazing and just one of the great reasons why webinars have been a popular tool for reaching people across borders. So 7% Asia Pacific, 14% from Africa, 7% Europe and Middle East, 64% of us are here in North America, and 7% in South America. Fantastic. So really, I think this quickly captures the essence of webinars in terms of saving time that's involved in travel and, of course, the cost that is associated with it. I'm going to hide this and quickly jump into our next session as to why organizations are finding this to be a webinars to be value-added technology for them. So beyond the cost of travel and time that we've just mentioned, another key angle to examine webinars from is by attracting brand awareness. I'm sure on a daily basis, every organization, no matter what business you are in, endeavors to extend brand awareness, either to current clients or to new customers. Brand awareness essentially is about letting prospective clients know who you are, what's your products, your services, and programs. So for existing clients, it's about ensuring that they stay committed to you and your brand and what you offer them. And for new customers, it's about enhancing and bringing in that awareness and for promoting brand loyalty down the line. We see vast examples of the examples of webinars being used for brand awareness across the board. Let's take a quick look at one of such case studies in branding. This is the case study of Queen's University. I happen to have worked with them and not on the webinar session in particular, but Queen's is great in terms of how they've been able to integrate webinars in their business programs. As you can see from this quick capture, it quickly demonstrates to you how they have harnessed the power of webinars for enrollment and recruitment of business students. From this key little introduction you're seeing on the screen right now, the key phrases that they use to describe their brand includes sophisticated approach, culture of coaching, it's a personalized program, team-based learning, and I bet you know from the level of competition that you've seen or we've all seen in colleges and universities and in recruiting students, this is great branding from the word go. And they offer prospective students an opportunity to learn more about their programs and application processes via the face-to-face and online sessions. As you can see from this example, the online presentation allows them to meet and greet prospective students and answer any questions even before the application process begins. So it's about brand differentiation, engaging prospects early, and yielding the right kind of candidates. Across organizations, we see the need to attract, engage, and retain new members, to even engage existing clients, to retain customers in terms of offering support on how to use our services. If it's a software, it's how can one use or better use a software, to share best practices. I would say a session like today is definitely one such example where my intent is to share as many best practices that I've seen in terms of how webinars are used by different organizations. The other element around webinars is to reward loyal customers. And how organizations do this is sometimes they may offer free or complimentary webinars to those who are loyal to them. And obviously there are also user webinars or conferences where they get to know in advance what a company or an organization is offering in terms of services. Let's take a quick peek at another different reason why organizations use webinars, and that is to orient or bring new members on board. This applies to whether you have new employees, customers, trainees, board members, volunteers, or resellers. Such an orientation session would be helpful if you have new trainees and before they enroll you can give them a sense of what to expect. Or if you have new employees, then they get that orientation instead of them coming to your headquarters, for example, if they work from diverse or different locations, then they're able to meet and greet each other online. Same thing for customers or other stakeholders. One key example that I would like to showcase for this use in terms of orientation and onboarding is the organization which is called IEEE. And this is a professional association, and they use webinars from this particular example you can see to bring and welcome new members, allowing them to get to know what the benefits are, what the services that they offer. We have 3 examples here of how they do this. They offer a webinar that you can register for. If you're not able to attend the webinar, they provide access to the slides. And in addition to that, they provide pre-recorded versions of the webinar. So that's great in terms of offering options in case somebody cannot attend. Let's take a minute and take another poll on how you're currently using, what you're currently using to market your services or products. So I've launched the survey. I kindly ask you to take a minute and respond to that. Okay. The numbers are still changing, so I'll still give a minute. Okay, I'm going to close this now and share that with you. Very interesting in terms of the distribution here. Almost half and half, 46% using print-based, primarily newspapers, magazines, journals, and other, and then 54% using social media. So, I mean, just for this group alone, we're seeing a departure from TV and paid ads and videos, and it seems at this point that none of you has reported that you're using webinars. And hopefully my desire is for you to add this onto your toolkit and know that you can absolutely use it and we can guide you on how to do that. Okay, so I'm going to close this and on we continue. Another key reason why organizations choose to use webinars is for education or training. This could be around educating people on what emerging platforms or applications that there are, or knowledge transfer whenever you have a new report, a new survey that you've conducted and you wish to share with your stakeholders, or to develop competencies among your existing or current stakeholders. Webinars are also used for user events to foster an exchange of ideas and to train on any new innovations that an organization may come up with. I'll give you an example of that. Blackboard, that you may be familiar with, is a company, a learning company that's very well known in the e-learning space. And what they have done is, in addition to the software they're known for, they have created a tool for their members to learn more about how to effectively use their software in what they call innovative teaching series. And this is a series of webinars that they offer on all aspects of using their tools and other elements of learning and facilitating. And as you can see from that example, their users, I bet, appreciate the fact that they have a resource that they can always go to assist them in utilizing their software even better. Here's another example of how organizations have been able to showcase their expertise as needs in the audience changes. In this particular example that I'm showing is by Constant Contact. Last year here in Canada, we had a change in the legislation, and the Canadian anti-spam legislation was introduced. And so what happened is organizations needed to quickly get in touch with what this is all about, and clearly Constant Contact used webinars very well in terms of showcasing their expertise in this area, as they're well known for email marketing. And you may take a look at their website if you want to learn more about what this is about. Okay, so another reason why organizations use webinars is for lead generation. What do I mean by lead generation? How do businesses expand their client base? They clearly do so by upselling new services or products to existing customers, or by generating prospects, which are called leads, so that they're able to acquire new clients in either new areas or new or existing locations. Another way is to expand the customer base and to promote innovations as they come along, or to acquire new clients and train them on new innovations, and to demonstrate how something, let's say a program or a product or a service, really works. I'm using a case study from Knowledge Vision, and they have done a fantastic job of showcasing how the element of trialability comes in. Any one of you, I'm sure you've experienced the 14-day trial. And the 14-day trial works great when you want to try a software, you've never used it, you don't want to commit, and yet you really want to get a sense of what does it do, how does it work, does it even fit my needs? And this screen capture shows you that when you go to their website, you're able to test their video, and then you can sign up for a 14-day free trial. And that's what is called trialability. And so webinars provide such example, because in the case of Knowledge Vision, they offer a webinar that will help you to learn about the software and also trial the tool. Another key reason for revenue generation that you probably are most familiar with this brand is Harvard, and Harvard Business Review in particular. What Harvard Business Review have been able to do is to complement the webinars and also on the side feed in a revenue generation model. When you go to the website, if you have a chance to do so, you find this absolutely intriguing, because they have added a virtual component to physical events and campaigns, and identify a way of doing webinars on various business topics. So they introduce a webinar through a webinar format, an interview format, with an expert being interviewed. And this graphic that you see on the side of the screen recommends a book that is appropriate for this particular webinar. And if you're interested not only in the book, you may also be interested in purchasing a case study. In this case, it's AT&T in China. So that's an example of revenue generation using webinars, which actually in this particular instance are provided free of charge. I'd like to jump into the next value that organizations find in webinars, which is advocacy. And advocacy has also a link in terms of training people on how to do something or informing an audience about a particular topic. And this example is by the Canadian Diabetes Association. I'm going to show, for example, how with the Diabetes Association they were able to have 3 key components integrated in one. First is the webinar series, 2 is the support by a sponsor, and 3 is they have tied it into their fundraising campaign. What they have done very well is, and that I would like to draw your attention to, is the element of sustainability. They're able to host group viewing sessions, like one we have today. They have a volunteer-driven approach where they facilitate sessions on a volunteer basis, host sessions. One can donate to their cause. As you can see here, there's a 1-800 number and a link to their website that people can go to. And in addition to that, the sponsorship element. Okay, so before I continue, I still want to direct your attention to your questions tab. I believe it's blue on your side. Would you kindly ask any questions that you may have so that Lydia can capture them and prepare for the Q&A session that's to follow. Thank you. All right, so that's the advocacy bit. The accessibility element is another value or benefit that organizations see when they host webinars. The case study that I'm demonstrating here is that of the University of California in Santa Barbara. Again, it has to do with the approach for how do we reduce travel costs by events, how do we save time for our applicants, and how do we also make the most out of our application and our admission staff so that we're saving time on how much time they spend on processing applications that sometimes come incomplete. I happen to have worked in a university many years, so I am quite familiar with this challenge where you don't want to turn away students who are obviously very qualified, but they do not do a very good job completing an application. And the application for this is across all businesses. If you have a form that requires people to complete, maybe it might be useful where you provide a very short recording of what the key information that one must complete. In this case, it's the personal statement. How do you write one? And the actual application. And so the University of California, Santa Barbara does a good job with assisting their applicants in that way by showing them exactly what they need to do. All right. So last but not least, obviously, is the need to go green. We are all familiar with the pressure on Mother Earth to keep giving, and our efforts essentially on saving Mother Earth is that webinars are eco-friendly. They reduce the carbon footprint, which is usually about reducing the amount of travel to attend training events and meetings. And so that captures the key benefits that organizations have been able to realize from using webinars. And I'm sure there are more, and you can bring more to attention. And this is an ongoing conversation, of course. That doesn't mean these are the only ones. So essentially, I am going to pause here for any questions that Lydia may have had from our presenters. Oh, sorry, our attendees. Go ahead, Lydia.
Well, thank you for such an enlightening session, Penina. I do not see any questions posted here. I would encourage you to post any questions or comments. I will give you a minute to type into the chat box so that we can respond to those. Don't go away with your questions, please. Thank you.
I see one Lydia coming up on my end.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think this one came directly to me, and so I'm going to go ahead and read it. How do you build, the question is, how do you build a product to present as a webinar series? for example, to present a webinar on how to write a business plan? This is from Peter, and what a great question. I think his question gets us right into the importance of planning, given that webinars, it's not just something you wake up and say, yes, I'm going to do this, sounds great, let's do it. There is quite some intensive planning that needs to happen, and this goes into the strategy and why you should do it. What's the content strategy, and what's your overall marketing and training strategies, which then which are key considerations obviously before launch, so that it's integrated. It's integrated with what you're already doing. If there are already face-to-face sessions happening, how would the webinars then complement what is already being done? So, for example, if the topic is how to present a webinar on how to write a business plan, well, business plans are fantastic business tools, which can be quite broad. So I would say, just to keep my response a bit short, is that would obviously take more than one webinar. There could be an overview of a business plan, but with very shorter, more specific webinars ongoing that would then speak directly to each of the components of a business plan. But that's a great question. And again, I think the emphasis on planning and looking at what's already existing in your marketing or in your training repertoire or toolkit, and then finding what are the pieces where webinars would add the most value depending on the audience, on the topic, and on the overall approach of a program that you already have. Thank you. Do we have any questions, Lydia?
Not on my end. I do not see any questions posted.
I see one more.
Okay, good. Go for it.
What are the costs to present a webinar? This is coming from Iqbal, and I will not be able to speak to costs, but they can be as minimal as you wish to be, and they can be as extensive as you have a budget for. And I said that for a reason. Over the years, I've used Skype, for example, for many, many meetings. Skype, as you know, is a good example of a free, depending on what elements you take, free web-based tool that you can use to conference. Well, it has its abilities and it has its limits in terms of what you can do with it. The tool we're using today is called GoToWebinar. It's a paid application. And depending on what it is you plan to do, and again, back to strategy, what the strategy is determines the cost. Are you going to have multiple organizers? If you have multiple organizers, so that means more than one person, in this case it's myself and Lydia, then you may need more than one license. It depends also on the frequency. Frequency is how many sessions are you organizing. If it's one, then obviously reduce cost. If you're having multiple sessions, that's another variable. Another variable is recording. Do you need recordings? Are you going to create webcasts after the fact? So to a short answer to an extensive discussion around cost is it's something I would love to continue to have the discussion with on what are the key elements that you need to look at. But more so, it's about linking it with what's the strategy. Do you have a strategy for content or regular marketing or learning? And how can your budget and your particular audience most benefit from this? Okay, we have another question from, let's see. Instructional videos, can you recommend a preferred on-screen recording software? The question is, for instructional videos, can you recommend a preferred on-screen recording software? I'm not sure what the person who asked this meant by on-screen, but the answer I would say generally is yes. If you're having an instructional video, then yes, for sure. Having a recording software is great because it adds that benefit or value add in terms of introducing media for people who learn differently. So taking into consideration the different learning styles insights that people bring into the table. So yes, definitely recommend adding instructional videos, and there are multiple softwares for doing just that. And essentially the choice is all based on who's your audience and what are your key things that you want to meet through the recordings. Okay, I think let me see if we have one more question. Okay, the other question is, would you recommend GoToWebinar as the best service provider for hosting webinars? I want to go back to our original and first asterisk that Lydia already mentioned in her introduction, that we're not affiliated to any of these brands that may be mentioned in this webinar. But we've found this particular tool, among others, to be quite useful in terms of providing webinar hosting. But again, depending on what it is that you need, I'll be happy to have a longer discussion on what to do with that. I actually have a white paper that I'll be putting on our website later on about how do you go about selecting virtual tools. And not to forget, there is an online course that Lydia will be talking to you about that can enhance your insights on that. Okay, so moving right along, I would like to summarize this. I had booked and asked each one of you to provide us with 45 minutes, so I want to be very conscious of time. I'll be able to take maybe one or two more questions, sorry, before we finish. So let me jump onto my summary, and then we'll hear from Lydia in a minute. So in summary, I want to say that webinar applications are a useful strategy for conducting sales presentations, brainstorming sessions, project planning and management, for peer-to-peer learning or facilitated training. For virtual trade shows, there are elements of webinars or virtual meetings, other virtual meetings that you can hold for online fairs, for company-wide gatherings, professional networking, and for orienting new members. The key considerations, as you may already have noticed, and even in the questions that were asked, there are a lot of ingredients that need to come in together and in place to hold a successful webinar. This is where we can help, and some of the considerations include cost, scheduling, infrastructure, who's the audience, what's the content, elements of netiquette, which is etiquette online, hardware, software, technical support. So these are all key variables that one needs to take into consideration. In terms of the summary, what I've captured in the last 30 minutes is the reasons why organizations are choosing to adopt webinars, whether in their traditional formats such as this one or flipped webinars, which in the next webinar next month we'll be able to discuss. It's around access, so establishing access to your services, to your experts, or to experts that you may not otherwise have in-house, but you can reach out to them. Attracting an audience from wherever they are in your neighborhood, across town, or across your different countries, engaging your current customers, whoever your customer base is. You obviously know it's easy to lose them than it is to keep them, so finding means of retaining them, engaging them and hopefully retaining them. So I would hand it over to Lydia, but before I do, Lydia, there's one more question that I just noticed coming in about the role of moderators. Karan, this particular question is really important because it speaks on an important factor that kind of ties back to the budget and the approach that you use. I've seen webinars that are conducted by just one person. So you may choose that you don't have the budget or the capacity, or you simply want to go ahead and do it on your own. That's a possible way to approach this. If you have the support system in place, then you may also choose to have moderators. Lydia in this particular case is a facilitator for today, and their role may be really diverse depending on what kind of approach do you want to use. It could be introducing, it could be some moderators can be panelists and they can present some of the content within a website. Some others just simply assist in running and ensuring a smooth flow within the session. All right. I'm taking a peek here. I see another question coming in. So I have another question around cost. I think I already answered that in the previous question around specifics of cost. What I think is important to note that is cost is not, it can be close to zero. If you have had an opportunity to use Skype or Google Hangouts, those are potentially, they are free tools. However, always remember to calculate opportunity costs. There's always a cost to everything. Other tools such as GoToWebinar or a lot of other proprietary ones have a cost attached to it in terms of licensing, in terms of number of participants, in terms of who, licensing. And I think what's important is to get to understand what your particular needs are and then provide a more specific answer related to that. I see. Okay. Great. I think that's all the questions I have. So Lydia, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Lam. I would like to encourage you, everyone else, to just feel free to send in more questions to Penina via email. If you are still thinking about, what you've had today and you want to make a comment or add something to this session, please feel free to do that via email. We do hope that you will be able to join us again on February 25th in this series of webinars. And next webinar will be focusing on what makes effective virtual meetings. What makes effective virtual meetings? And as you've heard from Dr. Lam today, very insightful. We will be learning more about that next time. We will continue to address topics that you identify to us as your top learning priorities. We have already received some suggestions via the survey. Please submit these surveys so we can access, and you can also access our website, And the details on our website are online there. You can see it's eLearninginnovators.com. Please feel free to go there and see what other services you can get. I invite you to contact us following the webinar to discuss any of your needs and how best we can assist you in launching your own webinar, event, or series. Our services allow you to focus on the delivery while we assist you on all elements of the webinar planning, technology, and delivery. There is an ebook on the same topic that will be released for sale in March. It will be released via Amazon Kindle. And we would like to let you know that it will be available if you're keen to learn more about webinars. We also would like to invite you to take a survey. It will be very short. Please feel free to give us your very good feedback so that we can make these sessions even better. We also invite you to stay connected via the social media links that are on the screen. Good. And let's keep the conversation going. Thank you so much for your time. And we hope that you will join us again on February 25th. Thank you very much. Bye.